couple of the Seattle Seahawks had very useful and smart things to say about student athletics. Those of us who are regular listeners to this program will recall that we've covered student athletics on this program, issues with the NCAA and so on, and feel very strongly that they are workers among workers in a society of workers and should be treated as such, student athletes I speak of. And both these guys had great things to say on the subject. I'd like to highlight a couple of their remarks, which, by the way, were transcribed by Deadspin.com. For example, Richard Sherman had this to say. And I'm quoting Richard Sherman: "I would love for a regular student to have a student athlete schedule during the season for just one quarter or one semester and show me how you'll balance that. Show me how you would schedule your classes when you can't schedule classes from 2 o'clock onward on any given day. Show me how you're going to get all your work done when after you get out at 7:30 or so, you've got a test the next day, you're dead tired from practice, and you still have to study just as hard as everybody else every day and get all the same work done." See, this is really what it means to be a student who's also working full time. These guys are putting in time to practice, and guess what? Their schools are making a fortune off their athletics, and they are getting very little for it, relatively speaking. They're certainly not being treated as workers. They are certainly not being protected. Richard Sherman had more to say about that, including challenges of focuses. And he also said something interesting that I hadn't thought about. He addressed the issue of college majors. Here's what Richard Sherman had to say: "A lot of the classes conflict with your time as a football player. You have an engineering class from 2 to 3 o'clock. There's no way you can do that and practice. You can't go to meetings and take your engineering classes. So you do what you can, what do? Do you switch your major, or do you tell your coach, hey, I got engineering class from 2 to 3:30 and I have to go today?" That's a conflict of interest. That's what Richard Sherman had to say. And then, there's the idea that athletes are getting a good deal and they should be happy with what they get. Here's what Richard Sherman had to say about that. They, meaning the university, are upset when a student athlete says they need a little cash. Well, I can tell you from experience, I had negative $40 in my account. Usually my account was in the negative more time than it was in the positive. You got to make decisions on whether you get gas for your car or whether you get a meal for the day. You've got one of the two choices. People think, oh, you're on scholarship. So he's right. They're working. They're not getting compensated for it. And yet he says they're told behind doors this: to their knowledge, you're there to play football. You're not on scholarship for school. And it sounds crazy when a student athlete says that, but those are the things coaches tell them when they say you're not on scholarship for school. What does that mean? Supposedly that's the deal, right? Supposedly that's the transaction. And yet they're not getting their part of the bargain, because what they're supposed to get in return is an education. That's being short-shrifted in the whole process. I think he makes a great point. Now, here's what Michael Bennett has to say about colleges. He says, "I think the NCAA is one of the biggest scams in America because, these kids put so much on the line and they study hard. They play football as hard as they can. But if they don't crack the NFL, then they say, we gave you a free degree." That's like me. This is Bennett talking now. That's like me owning a restaurant and giving you a free burger. I mean, it's really not doing anything for me. I'm just giving you something I already have. Well, I think it's a good point. I mean, certainly an education is valuable, but if you, in return for that education, are not getting full access to classes, as Richard Sherman points out, if you can't take the classes you need for the major of your choice, you didn't even get the burger. Maybe you got a couple bites off the burger, and that's it. Now, Michael Bennett also, I think my school, Texas A&M, averaged $50 million on jersey sales. They'll sell numbers of guys that don't even have their names on the back of the jersey, but we all know who number 2 is for College Station, and that'll be Johnny Manziel. So he makes so much for the university, but he doesn't see any of the money. Now, again, fair point. Everywhere else in our economy, if someone uses your name, your number, your identifier, you get money for it. So listen, I think look, here's Bennett's idea of what a fair solution is. They need to come up with some kind of program to keep guys in college. I would say come up with some kind of number. Maybe it's 50,000 every year to stay in college. And then at the end of the year, what does he say here? They keep in some kind of 401k. You stay in college, you graduate, you keep that money till you're a certain age. And after that, you get that money and you get to determine what you want to do with that. And that gives you the experience of something special because you gave so much to their schools and they just move on otherwise, he means. So, look, where does this all leave us? I guess it leaves us with the idea that student athletes might be just a little bit exploited. Now, in case you think, well, this is a couple of millionaire athletes griping when they have nothing to gripe about, remember, most student athletes don't go on to become millionaires. On the other hand, college football coaches, we'll close with this, what Michael Bennett had to say about that. Of course, they can play Of course, they can pay Jim Harbaugh $48 million because they don't have to pay any of the athletes. The athletes are the ones that really make the school. It's not really the coach. If Nick Saban doesn't have these athletes that he has, he doesn't have the 5-star records. Can he still... Oh, I can't even read this. Can he still be Alabama? Interesting. Okay. So, look, we believe in a society where people get compensated for what they do. In this case, not just with an education, but with full access to an education. And if millions and millions of dollars are being paid, we don't want to see the same kind of inequality in our athletics that we see in the rest of our economy, because that is the wrong lesson for young people. It is the wrong lesson for society as a whole. We've had enough of millionaire and billionaire leaders and those who produce for them at great effort and get nothing for it. Whether it's the NCAA or Wall Street, we need more equality in our society. And when you work for a living, you should get something. $50,000 is not an extravagant sum given what coaches are made. That's the future, recognizing the rights and protecting the safety of athletes in the NCAA. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.